couple years down the road, you are standing over a hot stove. You got a big pot, water waiting to come to a boil in the back right burner. Got a box of spaghetti on the counter.
Fuck yeah.
You've got some like pre-cooked meatballs on a tray in your oven warming up. You got a little bit of diced veg, little garlic, onion. You got some mushrooms all cooking down in a pot. You're gonna add some sauce too. And most importantly, you've got a beautiful woman sitting on your couch.
What? Who is
You've
she?
been dating this woman. Her name is uh Sharon Fulcrum. And you've been dating Sharon Fulcrum for a couple of weeks, right? And you've gone out on a couple of nice dates with her. You've had a good time. She's come. This is the first time coming over to your house. So you're like, yeah, come over. I'll make you some spaghetti and meatballs. And you've been like practicing this dish, right? You've been like really fucking trying. Like you've had spaghetti and meatballs like 3 times this week in preparation of like getting this right,
Oh, whoa.
you know? So you're you got the radio on, right? You got a playlist going. It's called Pat's Party Night Playlist.
What's
And
on
then
it?
in parentheses it says for dates only.
Weird.
It's a bunch of like adult alternative stuff from the late 90s, early aughts.
Cool.
A lot of soft rock for the time. You guys are kind of you're having a good time. You are like focused on this dinner, right? You got a little timer on your phone when the meatballs need to come out. Garlic bread's gonna go in. You're like really trying to coordinate this meal. The sauce that you're making, you have you sweat down some vegetables, you had some tomato paste, some salt, you had a little bit of sugar, a little bit of, salt, pepper to taste, right? So you're making this sauce and you're talking a lot of shit too. You're like looking over, stirring the sauce, and she's like, I see you stirring that sauce, and you kind of like shake your little ass a little bit,
Oh, what?
Yeah. You're like, I know how to stir things up. You just look like right into her eyes.
Yeah.
The implication is pretty obvious, right?
Well, yeah.
She's still sitting there. You know what I mean?
Okay, sure.
Still there.
Okay.
You kind of like take notice that she doesn't get up and leave, and you go, okay, all right. You feel almost like fireworks, almost like a bottle rocket gets shot down your spine,
Oh my God.
blows up right at your pelvis, and you feel that explosion all the way out in the tip of that dick.
Oh my.
'Cause you know what's coming.
Yeah. Well, let's focus on the sauce.
So you're focusing on the sauce. You think that you're like focus on the sauce, focus on the sauce,
Yeah.
But you're like at the same time, like still, trying to talk some shit, Like you're
Sure.
still like
I'm in a feisty mood.
you're putting it down, You're feeling confident.
Oh, wow.
Um, so you like, you make this whole meal, right? The noodles go on, you feel like you got everything timed out perfectly. You plate these two beautiful plates, you sit down, She takes a bite and she just immediately goes, she goes, Pat, this, she goes, you're a nice guy, but this might be the worst
Oh
spaghetti and
no.
meatballs I've ever had. You taste it and you mistook your uh sugar for salt and you accidentally put in like way more sugar than you should have, you know?
Oh man.
And so it just like it totally it's definitely it's very fucked up,
I can't
you
say it
know, and
with
you kind of like
fuck.
no, you kind of like hang your head in shame. She wipes her mouth. She goes, "Yeah, I'll give you a call." And then she just
Ah,
fucking walks out.
God, man.
Walks out.
Patrick.
You clean up the kitchen, you throw out the pasta, the inedible pasta.
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
You think, "What the fuck am I doing?"
God damn it.
You know? You
Wait, I
have
didn't
this
I didn't
moment where
notice
you're like
this when I was making it.
you were too caught up in the dance between two lovers yet to be.
Ugh.
So you you know, you're pretty bummed, obviously, right? You're like very upset. And it's one of those things where you're like, what the fuck? Like I should be able to just like make this meal, you know, at a good enough level to where like I won't embarrass myself, you know? You're really hard on yourself.
Okay.
So you kind of like chalk up this loss. You're like, well, never fucking see her again. You go to bed, you fucking crank.
Go. Yeah.
And we've all been there. We've all been out in the middle, in the early part of the night thinking like, okay, I know where this is going,
Yeah. And then
you know, and you allow your brain to run a little while. You allow your vessels to fill up,
yeah.
you know, and then there's that moment of disappointment where you mentally and emotionally understand what's happening, but your body doesn't get it. Your body's like, I'm ready, baby.
Yeah.
So you crank, clean yourself up.
Ugh.
You
So
go to
gross.
bed. It's not gross. So you go to bed. You wake up the next morning. It's a weekend. You're like, I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna go like find like a recipe book. I'm gonna go out and see. I'm gonna look through a bunch of books at like a bookstore and see what I can find and see if there's anything for like a beginner cook. Like I'm gonna go look and see what's out there. And you
How
go
was
by the time I come home, I'm gonna have a book of recipes that I can use to like eat well and impress.
how was my sauce leading up to this?
Pretty good,
God damn it.
not bad.
Okay.
You felt very confident going into the night, but you
Really
fucking
did.
blew it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you fucking blew it, right? So you there's a cookbook by a chef. He's a former Green Beret, right? It's called uh Cooking for a Squadron of Men by by former Green Beret chef uh Chuck Rounds.
Chef Chuck Rounds.
Chuck Ground,
Ground.
former Green Beret.
Wow.
And you look through it, right? And the opening line of this book says, if you're reading this, you probably fucked up.
Oh my God. What? How does he know?
Yeah. And you go, and so you kind of go to yourself, you're like, oh well, yeah, you know, he's got me. And then the next line says, I know because I was once one of you.
Whoa.
And he tells a story about he was in the Green Beret for years, you know, he helped you know, CIA overthrow a silent coup in Central America, right? He um he says, I have three of the four most valuable Beanie Babies in the world. He
Love it.
goes, "Don't ask me how I got him." Right. So it's like this thing where he's like a hard ass with a whole air of mystery around him, right? And it says, by the end of this book, if you can't cook for yourself, I'll come over and I'll give you 20 push-ups.
That's like
So
a
you read the
legal
book,
guarantee.
right? There's an asterisk next to it, and you look down at the bottom of the page and it says a legal guarantee.
Whoa.
So you read the book, right? You go through the recipes. It's pretty standard American fare, it talks to you about how to purchase different proteins and like what times of year things are in season. And it gets to do a couple of like starter recipes. Like here's a good red sauce pasta, here's how you make like a good wedge salad. You want to try to make a vinaigrette on your own? Here's a really simple recipe that you can expand upon.
Hmm.
And each one of these recipes before it is just a grisly account of one of his missions somewhere abroad. And there's even like photos, like there's several pictures of him like lifting up a dead guy's head, like smiling at the camera. There's a lot of that, right? So, you're going through some of the recipes, right? You're like dog earing pages, the ones you like the most. You get through the whole book, you read everything, and you think, I'm coming out of this with some like things to work on
Yeah.
in the kitchen and out of it. You wake up a little early, you do 50 push-ups every day before you go in and get a shower. This is a new thing you're doing, right? And for every 10th push-up, instead of saying like 10, 20, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, you go, thank you, chef, for every 10. Because you don't want to lose the connection to what started you down this path,
Oh
right? And that
no.
was cooking for a platoon, like that's like,
16, 17, 18, 19. Thank you, chef. 21.
thank you, chef.
Holy,
Yeah,
holy fuck, dude.
right.
Uh,
So you read the book, right? The very last page says still struggling, and it puts like he puts like an email address, like a contact thing, his email and phone number down, right? So you decide you're gonna send him a message, you know. You fire off an email and you say, Sir/chef, thank you for your inspiration. He said, I read your book front to back, and I feel like I am on the road to being a capable home cook, somebody who's able to prepare a meal for myself, family member, or a lover, should I be so lucky. And you say, the next time you're in Austin, I'd love to meet you and say hello.
yeah.
Pat.
P.S. Thank you, chef.
And you wrote that for you, you know.
Yeah.
You didn't write that for him. That was for you.
Yeah.
For every push-up that you've been doing. Every shower you've entered sweaty from all that hard work you're putting in. Thank you, chef. You think nothing of it and a couple hours go by. You get a ding on your phone, you look down, and Chef Chuck Ground has responded. And he says, uh, he was Pat, I love hearing great stories of success like this. He goes, this is honestly what keeps me going. He goes, and funny enough, I live in Austin. I actually teach a cooking class downtown. He goes, why don't you come by? I'd be happy to shake your hand and give you a free knife skills class.
Fuck yeah. I'd give him
He
free.
he gives you the
Yeah.
so he gives you the address and like a time,
Yeah.
of when to be there. You show up with your knife in hand.
Fuck yeah.
You go into like this sort of, it's very sterile. I mean, it's a kitchen. It's like a commercial kitchen, There's like there's four other guys that are there. A couple of them are wearing like camo, one of them's got a hat on. They're definitely like as interested in his story as like a soldier as they are like a chef, you know. So they're you guys you kind of walk in, all their heads turn. One guy like instinctively like grabs for his sidearm, holstered at his again, against his waist.
This guy is on
Everybody
edge.
kind of looks at him. He's like, I don't like being scared. And as soon as he turns around, Chef Chuck Ground is like right in his face, and he goes, "Ooh."
Jeez.
The guy fires a live round into the floor
What the?
out of fear. Chuck, he goes, "You can't handle your piece. Get the fuck out of here." And the guy's like,
Whoa.
I paid $80." He goes, "I don't give a fuck about your money." He goes, "Get the fuck out of here." The
I
guy
mean, he fired
turns,
a gun
walks
in.
away.
He fired a gun indoors.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't do that.
He fired a gun indoors and it was kind of fucked up. There was like a wasp that was building like a nest, right? And he fired it and took out this wasp nest. And
Oh,
like, which is a good thing because like the janitor at this commercial kitchen was like geared up, right? He was like hermetically sealed in like an anti-wasp suit, getting ready to go to war with this bug that has been challenging him and mocking him for the last 18 months.
mocking him.
And today was the day, yeah. He would tear down this. So this janitor, his name was Gordon Footley. And he first found this wasp nest out in like, the parking garage. And he took it down, he sprayed for it, took it down, disposed of it. And then like a week later, he saw that there was like a new nest going up in the exact same spot. He went to take it down again and he got buzzed by the biggest wasp you've ever fucking seen.
Wow.
It's got three bright yellow rings on its thorax and a stinger you can see from 20 yards away. So Gordon like felt like he was like he kind of taken aback. And over the next 18 months, he has been identifying and tearing down the newly formed house of this wasp all over the grounds. And today he got a new cleaner and he was going to exterminate this motherfucker right on the spot, but he didn't have to. Somebody put a 9 millimeter bullet right through that wasp. So the janitor kind of wipes the sweat from his brow, puts himself free of the hermetically sealed anti-wasp suit, calls his wife and says, "Honey, I'm coming home early." And then they went and made twins.
Wow. That's cool. Congrats.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a little while down the road. So, this guy gets escorted out for firing off a gun. Chef Chuck Ground, he goes, "Patrick," and he kind of gestures to the spot where the guy had like some stuff set up, like a cutting board and all that.
Oh, okay. I just take over.
Yeah, you just take his spot. And so he kind of like does this whole introduction, right? He says, "Over the next 6 weeks, every Saturday from noon to 2, you will show up here clean shaven, showered, with a sharp enough knife that you can cut a tomato slice on accident without even looking." And he kind of like you don't see it in his hand, but he like has a knife in his hand out of nowhere, and he cuts like a razor thin slice off of this tomato to the point that it flutters on its way down. Right, that's how thin it is. It lands softly on top of the stainless steel countertop you're standing in front of, and it just disappears into the silver. That's how thin it was. He says, "By the time you leave here, your knife skills will rival that of any chef in Paris. And I promise you of that." He says, "Gentlemen, are you ready to cook?" and everybody kind of like comes to attention, and you all say, "Chef, yes, chef." So over the next 6 weeks, you guys
This is intense.
go through you go through a very intense military style kitchen boot camp. You're taught knife skills, you learn all the chops, you can julienne, you learn the difference between like a dice and a mince. And you learn how to like quarter fruit and like or like how to take sections out of a fucking clementine. You learn the basics of meat butchering. You learn the cuts of a cow. You move on to dinners for one traditional meat, veg, starch, to stuff that's a little bit more involved. You learn about the mother sauces. You learn about culture from cuisine from places that you've never been. It's a really, really enlightening 6 week period of cooking with the baddest motherfucker on the planet. Every
Well,
one of his lessons, he kind of like tells like a story, like a war story, and how it relates.
yeah.
And he like he goes into great detail, and he talks about what he's done and the things he's seen and the nightmares that keep him awake at
The
night.
the nightmares? Why is he telling us
Oh yeah.
this?
Because one of the guys asked him that, and he kind of looks up and like with a totally blank expression, he goes, "Sometimes you just gotta get through this thing and on to the next thing."
Doesn't really answer anything.
Silence comes over the room. And then he's like, "So that's how you
Ugh.
that's how you make puff pastry from
So
scratch."
am I just used to the like his intensity by this point? 6 weeks in, it doesn't phase
Yeah,
me
but
anymore.
you are, but it keeps ratcheting up. Like the stories get a little more violent and a little
Oh
more
no.
aggressive.
Oof.
And he becomes a little less chef, a little more Green Beret as time goes on. He's always constantly like looking over his shoulder.
Oh no. So he's kind of getting in this headspace.
So you show up on the last Sunday, right?
Yeah.
Of six. You're going to make a dish from scratch and you're going to present it to chef and he's going to tell you what he thinks.
Oh
And
man.
so you're like standing in front of him, right?
So nervous.
You're like you make the spaghetti and meatballs again, but you make it all from scratch. You make the pasta from scratch, you make the meatballs from scratch, you make the sauce from scratch. This is like an all-day affair. It's going to take all day. So you start your sauce, right? Everybody, because it takes so long. The other three guys all make their dishes. One guy makes a cheeseburger and French fries. Again, all from scratch. He even made the bun. He Chef Chuck Ground takes a bite of that hamburger and he kind of looks up and he goes, "This makes me think of when I used to go watch the Phillies play. Me and my old man." He says, "Thank you, sir. You passed." And he takes his beret and he like flips it around to the other side.
Oh yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. Another guy, he makes like he makes this plate of like fried catfish
Hmm.
with coleslaw. And he said, and a plate of beans. He said there's some his grandmother used to make for him when he was a child.
Hmm.
Chef Chuck Ground tastes it and he says, "This is some of the finest fried fish I'd ever have. I'd have you in my company anytime."
Whoa.
And he moves his hat, he moves the beret over to the other side.
Dude, my heart would be pounding.
Third guy, he makes a tray of cinnamon rolls, right?
Cool.
And he was like, I wanted to do something a little different. He said, I know it's not necessarily time for cinnamon rolls. He goes, but you'll get the idea. You see Chuck Ground have to use a fucking fork and knife and cuts into this thing. You smell the cinnamon in the air as soon as he breaks apart the layers. He takes a bite of it and his eyes practically roll back in his head. And he goes, now that is a cinnamon roll worth getting out of bed for. He moves the cap over to the other side.
Man.
He comes to you. He sees your plate of spaghetti. He says, son, why'd you make spaghetti and meatballs?
So I think I say to him, I think I tell him, I go, I'm just going to be honest with you, chef. I was trying to impress a girl and I made spaghetti and meatballs and I thought I could make it well, but I screwed the whole thing up, ruined it with her. This is redemption, I guess.
He he kind of smiles. He cuts that meatball, spears it with his fork. He winds up twirling some of that spaghetti all sauced up.
Yeah.
He's kind of smiling. He chuckles to himself. He holds the spaghetti up and he looks at it in the light and he says, a wise man once told me, it ain't the face you gotta fuck, it's the fuck you gotta face. And he goes, it looks like you faced yours today, Patrick. And he goes to like take a bite of it
Yeah.
and you hear thwang and you look and there's just like a huge sword like stuck in the wall.
What?
And you look out like through the window, like so you look out, you're on like the second floor of this like this big commercial kitchen. You look out and through the kitchen across the divide, you see like five guys. They've all got like what look to be like rifles in their hands. They're busting in through the
Oh
ceiling
man.
above,
Fuck.
right?
What?
Chef Carl Ground goes, he goes, this is it, boys. He goes, time to show these motherfuckers your knife skills. And he puts his knife in his fucking teeth, right? And he starts to like bear crawl along the wall. Everybody else gets their knives in their teeth and they walk down too.
All right, let's do this.
So you guys are, he kind of, Carl looks at you and he goes, the hallway's about 60 feet long. He goes, these guys aren't going to expect us here. He says, Wilson. And like one guy, like kind of like snaps. He goes, get on the other side of that door. Get that knife ready. And when these motherfuckers come through, you're going to cut their Achilles. So Wilson like scoots over to the other side of the wall.
Good luck.
You say that, you reach out to him and you say like good luck, and you were like reached out to like touch him, and he just scoots away from you. So
Okay.
it's
Sorry.
probably not like a touch moment, but he gets on the other side, right? You see he's like breathing heavily with his knife in his teeth.
Wow. Yeah.
He grabs the knife. You hear the pitter patter of oncoming feet in a language these guys are communicating in a language you don't understand. You see like the flashlights from their guns sort of illuminate this 60-foot hallway. One of them steps to the doorway, and Wilson does not hesitate. He cuts their Achilles right on the back side of their ankle. You hear a scream, and a guy falls to the ground, face first. The voices in the hallway heighten, become terrified. They speak faster. The footsteps stop. You see a rifle slides across the floor, right into the hands of Chef Chuck Ground.
Fuck yeah.
He goes, I haven't had one of these babies in my arms since Fallujah. He goes, but he kind of like cocks it. He goes, I think I'll remember it pretty quickly.
Hell yeah, dude. That's cool.
Puts his knife back in his teeth, sort of like glides across the floor, right? He kind of like gets to where you are. He stops. He takes his knife out. He slides it across the floor to you. He goes, can you use two of those things at once, Dean? And you pick up his knife. He calls it uh it's called the truth teller.
Oh,
That's what he calls his knife.
why
It's
is it called
carved into
that?
the fucking blade.
Why is it called
You
that?
ask you ask him that. You asked him that the first day, and he goes, "Because I can get anybody to say whatever I want with this thing." So you grab the truth teller in your left hand, you got your
Wow.
knife in the right, and you go, "Yeah, I can handle two at once," right?
Yeah, this has gotten really out of hand.
So you're like you're in this like commercial kitchen, right? You're standing there, you got your back up against like a fucking just like a just like a stainless steel table, you
Yeah.
know. You're breathing heavy. You got both knives in your hand. You're white knuckling both of them. You hear a couple of shots ring out. You hear screams back and forth. You hear the unmistakable sound of a knife plunging into someone's gut. You hear a grunt and a fall and look, and somebody who is dressed like in all black falls face down in the kitchen, just a pool of blood forming underneath them. You kind of like stand up and you like creep out into the room, right? You look down the long 60-foot hallway and you see Chef Chuck Ground just advancing on their position. You can look through the windows. You see that there's like four guys with their hands up. They're just like hands raised,
Yeah.
and you hear pop, and they all fall to the ground.
Oh shit.
So you get up and you like run. You run into the room where Chef is, and he's just like kind of slunched over, like hunched over, slouched. He's just kind of like laughing to himself.
Why?
What do you say to him?
I go, did you kill those guys?
He turns to you, his eyes beat red, huge grin on his face. He goes, "I sure did." And he
Whoa.
says, "You know what I've missed?
What?
Killing."
Jeez, I bet.
And then he like walks past you. He sees his knife in your hand and he goes, "My knife." And he looks at you and he just grabs your hand and he in one motion he like twists it and breaks your wrist. And
What?
then he jams his own knife into your neck and
Ah,
he is so
truth
sharp.
teller.
He's so sharp that he cuts your head off.
Whoa.
He cuts your head off. Yeah, but before you do, there's like
Why did he do that?
because you had his knife and
He
you
gave it
feel
to
like
me.
yeah, but he's clearly lost his mind. You feel him like remove truth teller from your hand, but it's still like stuck in your neck. And he
Oh,
whispers into your ear, he goes, "Tell me your truth." And you tell him like a 5-minute story about a time that you got caught jacking off at a mall. Like a cleaning guy came in while you were jacking off in the bathroom and he
yeah.
didn't speak any English and you were just like, "I'm not jacking off," and he just kind of like whistled and walked away. Right. And you never like told anybody about that, but you tell him that story. He just laughs and he goes, "You fucking pervert." And then he cuts your head off and your body falls to the
Oh,
floor.
chef.
He goes missing, right? He goes on the lam and is like the number three most wanted man in America by the
Oh
year like
no.
2027.
Oh
Yeah,
no.
he killed so many people, including you.
Yeah. Fuck. Man, he
Yeah.
really lost it at the end there.
Yeah, he lost it.
So no
He
one,
sure
he
did.
never gets like help or anything. He just never.
Oh no, as of 2027, they haven't found him.
Damn.
Yeah. Rumor said he was working at a Waffle House somewhere in rural Indiana, the short order cook. But they've